experience whether we are drinking or not. This is the emotional hangover, the direct result of yesterday's and sometimes today's excesses of negative emotion, anger, fear, jealousy, and the like. If we would live serenely today and tomorrow, we certainly need to eliminate these hangovers. This doesn't mean we need to wander morbidly around in the past. It requires an admission and correction of errors now. Our inventory enables us to settle with the past. When this is done, we are really able to leave it behind us. When our inventory is carefully taken and we have made peace with ourselves, the conviction that follows that tomorrow's challenges can be met as they come. Although all inventories are alike in principle, the time factor does distinguish one from another. There's the spot check inventory, taken at any time of the day whenever we find ourselves getting tangled up. There's the one we take at day's end when we review the happenings of the hours just past. Here we cast up a balance sheet, crediting ourselves with things well done and chalking up debits where due. Then there are those occasions when alone or in the company of our sponsor or spiritual advisor, we make a careful review of our progress since the last time. Many AAs go in for annual or semi-annual house cleanings. Many of us also like the experience of an occasional retreat from the outside world where we can quiet down for an undisturbed day or so of self-overhaul and meditation. Aren't these practices joy killers as well as time consuming? Most AAs spend most of their waking hours AAs spend most of their time drearily rehashing their sins of omission and commission. Well, hardly. The emphasis on inventory is heavy only because a great many of us have never really acquired the habit of accurate self-appraisal. Once this healthy practice has become grooved, it will be so interesting and profitable that the time it takes won't be missed. For these minutes and sometimes hours spent in self-examination are bound to make all the other hours of our day better and happier. And at length, our inventories become a regular part of everyday living rather than something unusual or set apart. Okay, so that's 2 pages, so we'll stop there. I think that the thing that stands out for me the most in these 2 pages is they're talking about being in emotional balance and living to good purpose under all conditions. To me, that's the whole focus of AA. Once you stop drinking, it's to get these emotions and these obsessions and these habits and these patterns under control, first of all, by identifying them. Like a guy can't change a pattern unless he identifies the pattern first. Mm-hmm. When I grew up in my family, I got 2 big patterns. One was a caretaker, which I always felt like I had to take care of other people. And the other one was a people pleaser, which stopped me from saying no when I should say no. Somebody asked me to come and paint their fence, I got something else to do, but they asked me to paint their fence and I say yes when I don't want to do it. That was my pattern. Those were my 2 biggest patterns. And the whole idea of doing the steps is be able to identify those patterns. Like one of your patterns is always trying to impress your friends. Instead of letting them make up their mind whether they like you or not, you want to make them like you. Yeah. And that's a pattern that can be identified and then slowly changed. But it happens over a period of time. You know, I think that like I've been going to AA for 48 years. And I made a lot of changes, but they did happen over time. It didn't happen all at once. The biggest change was when I did the steps the first time, and that was after I'd been sober for 9 years. Because I didn't want to do the steps because I was afraid I would find out I really was an asshole. That's why I didn't want to do the steps. So do you want to read some more, or do you want me to keep on reading?
You keep on reading, otherwise I will read, I don't mind. Okay. I done. Thank you. It is spiritual, isn't it?
Before we ask,
Okay. Before we ask that a spot check inventory is, let's look at the kind of setting in which such as an inventory can do its work. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter that the cause, there is something wrong with us. If somebody hurts us and we are sore, we are in the wrong also. But are there no exceptions to this rule? What about a justifiable anger? If somebody cheats us, aren't we initialed to be mad? Can we be properly angry with the righteous folk? For us, these are dangerous assumptions. We have found that justified anger ought to be left to those better qualified to handle it. Few people have been more victimized by resentments than have an alcoholics. It mattered a little whether our resentments were justified or not. A burst of temper could spoil a day, and a well-nursed grudge could make us miserably ineffective. Nor were we were skillful in separating justified from unjustified anger. As we saw it, our wrath was always justified. Anger that occasionally assured of more balanced people could keep us on an emotional jug indefinitely. This emotional dry band-aids often led straight to the bottle. Other kinds of disturbance, jealousy, envy, self-pity or hurt pride did the same thing. A spot check inventory taken in the midst of such a disturbance can be of very great help in quitting stormy emotions. Today's spot check finds its chief application to situations which arise in each day's march. The consideration of long-standing difficulties had better be postponed, when possible, to times deliberately set aside for that purpose. The quick inventory is aimed at our daily ups and downs, especially those where people or new events through us of balance and tempt us to make mistakes. In all these situations, we need self-restraint, honest analysis of what is involved, a willingness to admit when the fault is ours, and an equal willingness to forgive when the fault is elsewhere. We need not be discouraged when we fall into the error of our old ways, for this discipline are not easy. We shall look for progress, not for perfection. Our first objective will be the development of self-restraint. This carries a top priority rating. When we speak or act hastily or rashly, the ability to be fair-minded and tolerant evaporates on the spot. One unkind tirade or one willful snap judgment can ruin our relation with another person for a whole day or maybe a whole year. Nothing pays off like a restraint of tongue and pen. We must avoid quick-tempered criticism and furious, power-driven arguments. The same goes for sulking or silent scorn. These are emotional body traps baited with pride and vengefulness. Our first job is to sidestep the traps. When we are tempted by the bait, we should train ourselves to step back and think, for we can neither think nor act to good purpose until the habit of self-restraint has become automatic. Disagreeable or unexpected problems are not the only ones that call for self-control. We must be quite as careful when we begin to achieve some measure of importance and material success. For no people have ever loved personal triumphs more than we have loved them. We drank of success as of a wine which could ever fail to make us feel elated. When temporary good fortune came our way, we indulged ourselves in fantasies of still greater victories over people and circumstances. This blinded by prideful self-confidence, we were apt to play the big shot. Of course, people turned away from us, bored or hurt. Now that we are in AA and sober and winning back the esteem of our friends and business associates, we find that we still need to exercise special vigilance. As an insurance agent, big shot ISM, we can often check ourselves by remembering that we are today sober only by the grace of God, and that any success we may be having is far more His success than ours. Finally, we begin to see that all people, including ourselves, are to some extent emotionally ill as well as frequently wrong. And then we approach true tolerance and see what real love for our fellows actually means. It will become more and more evident as we go forward that it is pointless to become angry or to get hurt by people who, like us, are suffering from the pain of growing up. Such a radical change in our outlook will take time, maybe a lot of time. Not many people can truthfully assert that they love everybody. Most of us must admit that we have loved but a few. That we have been quite indifferent to the many so long as none of them gave us trouble. And as for the remainder, well, we have really disliked or hate them. Although this attitude are common enough, we AIs find we need something much better in order to keep our balance. We can't stand it if we hate deeply. The idea that we can be possessively loving of a few, can ignore the many, and can continue to fear or hate anybody has to be abandoned,
Okay, let's stop there.
if only a little at a time.
Only a little at a time. Hey, justifiable anger is really dangerous, because if somebody does something, like say I find out somebody in the Barhead group started a rumor that I went back drinking, you know, how I would feel about that. But the thing of it is, and they talk about this here, is that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. And the reason why they focus on us is because if you're my problem, that means you have to change before I can be happy. And that puts me in a position of powerlessness, and it puts you in condition of being in control of my life. So that's why they say it's really important for us to focus on ourselves, because if I can be happy, if I change, then I have some control over it. If I can't be happy until you change, I don't have any control over it. So I think that's, and also too, we're not taking somebody else's inventory here, we're taking our inventory.
Yeah.
You know. And then, like they say, self-restraint has become that we can neither think nor act to good purpose until the habit of self-restraint has become automatic. And most of us don't have self-restraint. We say something, and then we think about what we said, and then we go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. It was too harsh, or it wasn't true, or I shouldn't have raised my voice. And what they're talking about here is thinking about it before we say it. That's what self-restraint is. And what that does is it puts us in a position where we're talking from what we know and what we see instead of what we feel. Because when we talk from what we feel, we usually end up saying something we wish we hadn't said. And that's what they're talking about there when they're talking about self-restraint. And then here it says, finally, we begin to see that all people, including ourselves, are to some extent emotionally ill. Now, emotional ill comes up quite a few times in step 2. Where are we here? It says here, some will be willing to term themselves problem drinkers, but cannot endure the suggestion that they are in fact mentally ill. So they say mentally ill there, and then they say emotionally ill here. So what they want us to understand is that despite all our rationalizations and all the things we tell ourselves, our thinking isn't working for us to our benefit all the time. That's what mental illness is, when your thinking doesn't work for you, it works against you. And when you think about a lot of the things that we did, a lot of things that we said when we were drinking and for the first little while that we were sober, it's not too hard to make that leap and say, yeah, my thinking doesn't work for me. Because we need to, see, the thing is that every alcoholic is an open wound. We were all hurt when we were little, and we felt bad. And we felt bad all the time we were growing up until we drank. And then when we drank, all of a sudden, we felt good. That's why we went back over and over and over again to the drink, is to try to get rid of the uncomfortable feelings that we had. So the steps are there designed to help us identify and deal with those uncomfortable feelings. Like, I've been in AA for 48 years. I've never met an alcoholic that felt like they fit in anywhere. Usually the first time we feel like we fit in is at AA, because we go to AA, we listen to what other people say, they're saying the same things we say. And we go, okay, I can identify with these people. They did the same things I did, and they feel the same way I feel. I finally found somewhere to fit in. For me, that was true. The first place I felt like I fit in was AA. Before that, I never felt like I fit in my family. I never felt like I fit in my school. I never felt like I fit in with my coworkers. I always felt that for some reason I was different. And when I got to AA, it was actually a relief, even though I wouldn't admit I was an alcoholic right away. I had to think about that for a while. But I knew that I related to these people, and they were saying the same things I was saying. And that's the first time in my life I ever felt like I fit in anywhere. So that's a big deal for us. Okay, I'll read a little. You want to say anything about those 2 pages?
No.
No? Okay. We can try to stop making unreasonable demands upon those we love. I want to stop right there for a second and tell you that when I was making demands of the people that I loved, making demands of life, making demands of my job, I was very disappointed for 2 reasons. One reason was that I had unrealistic expectations. Like, if a woman was going out with me, I expected her to do this, 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 and this. Well, she didn't want to do any of that. But who was I to tell her how to live her life? But that was one of the problems, was that I had unrealistic expectations. What I expected was never going to come true. And the other thing is that I was always trying to control things to try to make them come out the way I thought they should come out. And trying to control other people, trying to control life, drives you crazy, you know. But when I drank, I didn't care. When I was drunk, I didn't give a shit if a woman liked me or not. I didn't care if I got a job or not. I didn't care about anything. And that was the only time I didn't care about anything, was when I was drunk. So I made sure I stayed drunk all the time. So that's what they're talking about here, is these unreasonable demands we make on other people. They seem reasonable to us, but when we look back, we can see that we expected more from people than people had to give. Yeah, and the other part was that life goes the way life goes, and we have to change ourselves to fit life and not try to change life to fit us.
Okay.
Otherwise, that's a battle you'll never win, trying to make life change to fit what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are not expecting very little from others, isn't it?
Yeah. The more realistic I can be about what things, like say, for example, I'm 71 now. So in not too long of a period of time, 5, 10, 15 years, I'll be dead. So if I'm still expecting to become famous at 71, that's not going to happen. So I have to say to myself, expecting myself to become famous after I'm 71 is an expectation that's never going to happen. So in order for me to feel good about myself, I have to give that up. Because then that takes me off the hook, and it takes life off the hook, and I can accept the fact that I am where I am, that I'm doing what I'm doing, and that that's God's will for me. So I'll just finish now. We can show kindness where we had shown none. With those we dislike, we can begin to practice justice and courtesy, perhaps going out of our way to understand and help them. Whenever we fail any of these people, we can promptly admit it to ourselves always and to them also, when the admission would be helpful. Courtesy, kindness, justice, and love are the keynotes by which we may come into harmony with practically anybody. When in doubt, we can always pause saying, Thy, not my will, but thine be done. We can often ask ourselves, am I doing to others as I would have them do to me today? The golden rule. When evening comes, perhaps just before going to sleep, many of us draw up a balance sheet for the day. This is a good place to remember that inventory taking is not always done in red ink. It's a poor day indeed when we haven't done something right. As a matter of fact, the waking hours are usually well filled with things that are constructive. Good intentions, good thoughts, and good acts are there for us to see. Even when we have tried hard and failed, we may chalk that up as one of our greatest credits of all. Under these conditions, the pains of failure are converted into assets. Out of them, we receive the stimulation we need to go forward. Someone who knew what he was talking about once remarked that pain was the touchstone of all spiritual progress. How heartily we AAs can agree with him, for we know that the pains of drinking had to come before sobriety and emotional turmoil before serenity. As we glance down the debit side of the day's ledger, we should carefully examine our motives in each thought or act that appears to be wrong. In most cases, our motives won't be hard to see and understand. When prideful, angry, jealous, anxious, or fearful, we acted accordingly, and that was that. Here we need only recognize that we did act or think badly, try to visualize how we might have done better, and resolve with God's help to carry these lessons over into tomorrow, making, of course, any amends still neglected. But in other instances, only the closest scrutiny will reveal what our true motives were. These are cases where our ancient enemy, rationalization, has stepped in and has justified conduct which was really wrong. The temptation here is to imagine we had good motives and reasons when we didn't. We constructively criticize someone who needed it, when our real motive was to win a useless argument, or the person concerned not being present, we thought we were helping others to understand him, when in actuality our true motive was to feel superior by pulling him down. We sometimes hurt those we love because they need to be taught a lesson when we really want to punish. We were depressed and complained we felt bad, when in fact we were mainly asking for sympathy and attention. This odd trait of mind and emotion, this perverse wish to hide a bad motive underneath a good one, permeates human affairs from top to bottom. These subtle and elusive kinds of self-righteousness can underlie the smallest act or thought. Learning daily to spot, admit, and correct these flaws is the essence of character building and good living. An honest regret for harms done, a genuine gratitude for blessings received, and a willingness to try for better things tomorrow will be the permanent assets we shall sink. Having so crushed our day, not omitting to take due note of things well done, and having searched our hearts with neither fear nor favor, we can truly thank God for the blessings we have received and sleep in good conscience. That's something we didn't do much when we drank. We didn't sleep in good conscience.
Yeah.
So what they're really talking about is our relationships with other people and how we can improve them.
And daily make an inventory, isn't it? Daily inventory?
Mm-hmm.
Spot inventory, or at the end of the day,
Yeah.
evening time.
What I try to do is I try to stay aware during the day of how I feel just sort of pay attention every once in a while to how I feel. And if I feel bad, then I stop and say, what's that about? Did I do something wrong? Am I wallowing in the past? What am I doing that's making me feel bad? And then I try to use that as a spot inventory. And at the end of the day, I think that we can just take a look at the day and see what stands out. Usually if there's an argument, or if I get mad at somebody, or if I have a resentment, or if I feel hurt or whatever, that'll usually stand out for me at the end of the day. It isn't too difficult for me to be able to identify the things that I need to deal with. That's for me. I don't know for other people, but if somebody hurts my feelings, I notice that. And it's like I said a little bit earlier on, that we need to make amends if we did something wrong. And if somebody else did something wrong, we need to forgive them. And I think that the whole idea of the step 10 is to help us to focus on the only person we can change, which is us. I can't change you, I can't change Steve, I can't change anybody else. The only person I can really change is myself. And step 10 encourages me to focus in only on me, the only person that I can change. Because, like I said before, if you have to change before I can be happy, then you're in control of my life. And I want to be in control of my life. Can you turn on some lights? It's getting hard for me to read.
Okay.
That's good. We don't have to turn them all on. Oh, that's much better. Okay, you want to reach for a while?
Yeah. Step 11, isn't it?
Yeah, step 11.
Prayer, step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Prayer and meditation are our principal means of conscious contact with God. We AAs are active for enjoying the satisfaction of dealing with the realities of life, usually for the first time in our lives, and strenuously trying to help the next alcoholic who comes along. So it isn't surprising that we often tend to select serious meditations and prayer as something not really necessary. To be sure, we feel it is something that might help us to meet an occasional emergency, but at first many of us are apt to regard it as a somewhat mysterious skill of clergyman from which we may hope to get a second-hand benefit, or perhaps we don't believe in those things at all. To certain newcomers and to those one-time agnostic who still cling to the AA group as their higher power, claims for the power of prayer may, despite all the logic and experience in proof of it, still be unconvincing or quite objectionable. Those of us who once felt this way can certainly understand and sympathize. We will remember how something deep inside us kept rebelling against the idea of bowing before any god. Many of us had strong logic too, which proved there was no god whatever. What about all these accidents, sickness, cruelty, and injustice in the world? What about all those unhappy lives which were the direct result of unfortunate birth and uncontrollable circumstances? Surely there could be no justice in this scheme of things, and therefore no God at all. Sometimes we took a slightly different tack. Sure, we said to ourselves, the hen probably did come before the egg. No doubt, the universe had a first cause of some sort, the god of the atom, maybe hot and cold by turns, but certainly there wasn't any evidence of a god who knew or cared about human beings. We liked AA all right and were quick to say that it had done miracles, But we recoiled from meditations and prayer as obstinately as the scientist who refused to perform a certain experiment lest to prove his pet theory wrong. Of course, we finally did the experiment, and when an unexpected result followed, we felt different. In fact, we knew different. And so we were sold on meditation and prayer, and that we have found and can happen to anybody who tries. It has been well said that almost the only scoffers at prayer are those who never tried it enough. Those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine. And for the same reasons, when we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. And when we turn away from meditation and prayers, we likewise deprive of our minds, our emotions, and our intuition of vitally needed support, as the body can fail its purpose for lack of nourishment. So can the soul. We will need to all need the light of God reality, the nourishment of His strength, and the atmosphere of His grace. To an amazing extent, the facts of a life confirm this ageless truth. There is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom, and we will be comforted and assured that our own destiny in that realm will be secure for so long as we try. However, falteringly to find to the will of our own Creator, as we have been seen, self-searching is the means by which we bring a new vision, action, and grace to bear upon the dark and negative side of our natures. It is steps in the development of that kind of humility that makes it possible for us to receive God's help. It is only a step. We will want to go further. We will want the good that is in us all, even in the words of us, to flow and to grow. Most certainly, we shall need bracing air and an abundance of food. But first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our step out into the sun. How then shall we meditate? The actual experience of meditation and prayer across the centuries is, of course, immense. The world's libraries and place of worship are a treasure true for all seekers. It is to be hoped that every who has a religion connection which emphasizes meditation will return to the practice of that devotion as never before. But that about the rest of us who less fortunate don't even know how to begin. Well, we might start like this. First, let's look at a really good prayer. We won't have fear to seek. The great men and women who follow religions have left us a wonderful supply. Here let us consider one that is a classic. Its author was a man who for several hundred years now has been rated as a saint. You won't be braced or scared of by the fact, because although he was not an alcoholic, he did like us go through the emotional bringer, and as he came out the other side of that painful experience, this prayer was his expression of what he could then see, feel, and wish to become. Lord, make me a channel of my peace, thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, that where there is error I may bring the truth, that where there is a doubt I may bring faith, that there is a despair I may bring hope, that there were shadows I may bring light, that where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I will seek rather to comfort that to be comforted, to understand that to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one find. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awaken to eternal life. Amen.
Okay, let's stop there. You don't have any trouble with prayer and meditation, do you?
No.
No, me either. So there's not much to say about that, except that this prayer is, to me, it's one of the ones that I really like because it, like in the promises, it says, self-seeking will slip away and we will gain interest in our fellows. And that's what this prayer is. It's where there is hatred, I may bring love. Where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. It's all about our efforts to try to get along with other people and basically to be of service. Because God wants us to serve each other. I believe that's true anyway. That we should seek to rather to comfort than to be comforted. And what this prayer means to me is that I can leave myself behind and focus on other people, like it says in the promise, where it says self-seeking will slip away and I will gain interest in my fellows. Because when I first came to AA, I was incapable of thinking about your troubles because I was overwhelmed by my troubles. And I wasn't able to get past myself far enough to be able to care about anybody else. And so I was pretty much incapable of caring about other people because I was so wrapped up in myself and my problems and, you know, all the things in life that I wasn't getting and the whole 9 yards of that whole kettle of fish. And so this prayer helps us to forget ourselves and to care about other people. And like I said, when I first came, it wasn't that I didn't want to, I just wasn't capable of it. Because when you grow up in an alcoholic family, you don't get much of what you need. Because the alcoholic parent is always causing trouble. You know, they're getting into scrapes, people get mad at them, they lose jobs, they get mad and they beat people up in the family. And so the whole thing is like, it's like trying to raise a kid in the circus. And all the different things are going on in the circus and nobody's paying any attention to the kid. And the kid doesn't get what the kid needs. And so by the time we grow up, say we get to be 20, 21, of all the things that we were supposed to get, maybe we get 10% or 20%. So we're trying to live a normal life with an 80% deficit. We didn't learn to listen to other people. Like in my family, everybody listened to the old man because he was the biggest and he was the meanest. So if you didn't listen to what he said, you catch one on the side of the head or a kick in the ass or a slap or a pinch or whatever, because he wanted to dominate the whole family. He had that need inside him to dominate the whole family, because when he came back from the Second World War, all his wiring was burnt out in his head. Because he killed people and he got shot himself a couple of times, and he saw his friends get their arms and legs blown off, and he saw things that a human being shouldn't have to see. And he came back and he was broken. If his wounds were on the outside instead of on the inside, everybody who saw him would take him to the hospital because he was that wounded. He was just torn up inside. He was shredded inside. He just was, he had PTSD flashbacks when I was little. He thought he was back in the war. He'd be walking through the living room saying, "Get down, there's a sniper." You know, and there was nobody there. But he was talking to those people that weren't there. And so he didn't have anything to give because everything he had was taken away in the war. So for us to think about other people because we got so little of what we needed, it's difficult for us to learn how to do that. Okay, I'll pick it up from there. As beginners in meditation, we might now reread this prayer several times very slowly, severing every word and trying to take in the deep meaning of each phase and idea. It will help if we can drop all resistance to what our friend says. For in meditation, debate has no place. We rest quietly with the thoughts of someone who knows, so that we may experience and learn. As though lying upon a sunlit beach, let us relax and breathe deeply of the spiritual atmosphere with which the grace of this prayer surrounds us. Let us become willing to partake and be strengthened and lifted up by the sheer spiritual power, beauty, and love of which these magnificent words are the carriers. Let us look now upon the sea and ponder what its mystery is, and let us lift our eyes to the far horizon, beyond which we shall seek all those wonders still unseen. Shucks, says somebody, this is nonsense, it isn't practical. When such thoughts break in, we might recall a little ruefully how much store we used to set in imagination as it tried to create reality out of bottles. Yes, we reveled in that sort of thinking, didn't we? And though sober nowadays, don't we often try to do much the same thing? Perhaps our trouble was not that we used our imagination. Perhaps the real trouble was our almost total inability to point imagination towards the right objectives. There's nothing the matter with constructive imagination. All sound achievement rests upon it. After all, no man can build a house unless he first envisions a plan for it. Well, meditation is like that too. It helps to envision our spiritual objective before we try to move toward it. So let's get back to the sunlit beach, or to the plains, or to the mountains, if you prefer. When, by such simple devices, we have placed ourselves in a mood in which we can focus undisturbed on constructive imagination, we might proceed like this. Once more, we read our prayer and again try to see what its inner essence is. We'll think now about the man who first uttered this prayer. First of all, he wanted to become a channel. Then he asked for the grace to bring love, forgiveness, harmony, truth, faith, hope, light, and joy to every human being he could. Next came the expression of an aspiration and a hope for himself. He hoped, God willing, that he might be able to find some of these treasures too. This he would try to do by what he called self-forgetting. What did he mean by self-forgetting, and how did he propose to accomplish that? He thought it better to give comfort than to receive it, better to understand than to be understood, better to forgive than to be forgiven. This much could be a fragment of what is called meditation, perhaps our very first attempt at a mood, a flyer into the realm of spirit, if you like. It ought to be followed by a good look at where we stand now, and a further look at what might happen in our lives were we able to move closer to the ideal we have been trying to glimpse. Meditation is something which can always be further development. It has no boundaries either of height or width. Aided by such instruction and example as we can find, it is essentially an individual adventure, something which each one of us works out in his own way. But its object is always the same, to improve our conscious contact with God, with his grace, wisdom, and love. And let's always remember that meditation is in reality immensely practical. One of its first fruits is emotional balance. With it, we can broaden and deepen the channel between ourselves and God as we understand him. Now, what of prayer? Prayer is the raising of the heart and mind to God, and in this sense, it includes meditation. How may we go about it, and how does it fit in with meditation? Prayer, as commonly understood, is a petition to God. Having opened our channel as best we can, we try to ask for those right things of which we and others are in the greatest need. And we think that the whole range of our needs is well defined by that part of step 11 which says, knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. A request for this fits in any part of our day. In the morning, we think of the hours to come. Perhaps we think of our day's work and the chances it may afford us to be useful and helpful, or of some special problem that it may bring. Possibly today we'll see a continuation of a serious and as yet unresolved problem left over from yesterday. Our immediate temptation will be to ask for specific solutions to specific problems and for the ability to help other people as we already thought they should be helped. In this case, we are asking God to do it our way. Therefore, we ought to consider each request carefully to see what its real merit is. Even so, when making specific requests, it will be well to add to each one of them this qualification, if it be thy will. We ask simply that throughout the day God place us in the best understanding of his will that we can have for that day, and that we be given the grace by which we may carry it out. Okay, I'll stop there. So, I think that when I first came around, my prayers were basically gimme prayers. Give me a girlfriend.